when I was a child, my father was Central American Indian Kuna, my mother Rappahannock from Virginia, and we were all people were always interested in us in a good way and in a bad way. So as a child, my father sang and danced and performed. One of his many jobs. He had many jobs. He was a Kuna from San Blas, which is off the coast of Panama and Central America, and he was, I guess, active in the world of making a living, being native from Central America. And he met my mother in Brooklyn, and they connected, Central American and American natives, and married. But he was always interested. Singing and dancing with his native buddies. And then when he came to America and married my mother, he was introduced to an American native. So through that, we were in the performing world. And then just by living in Brooklyn, I was born in Brooklyn in an Italian neighborhood. I was always aware of racism and differences, and as well as my own cultures. So I guess as I grew up, I had two sisters, and we were all interested in just surviving and fighting racism from the day we were born. And I guess all our activities, as well as performing with the family, was on surviving and culture. And that was very big. That was very big. So as I grew and fought the world in my way, me and my family, I became interested in theater, and I knew that was a road to get our feelings out, to see what's going on and tell the world about us. And so I followed that line of theater, and when I guess my family did go to church, and through that I started to sing. And my sister did also. And my other sister, who's the director of Spider Woman, was born 11 years later. And we all sort of continued my father's song and dance road and sang, and as well as fight the good fight wherever we could find it. I don't know if this is answering your question. So,
it absolutely is. So, I mean, it seems like you came to it so early in your life. And
oh yeah, I was born into it. Let's put it that way. It's just we were born into it. I mean, just thinking of a native family in Brooklyn in an Italian neighborhood, and that tells you a lot. But what helped us survive was our culture and our identity, and from there on, I followed the road of performing, basically as a child, and I began singing at the age of 13, and then went into theater. Just my story. My two sisters, one has passed away, followed the same road, and had our different fights. But we decided one day, when we were older and married and had children and everything, that we should have some sort of group. So we started just the three of us. we called ourselves, like, my name was Bright Moon, my sister was Red Feather, and Muriel, the younger sister, was Bright Sun. So we called ourselves Sun, Moon, and Feather, and we became involved with getting grants, and some of the grants came from some feminist theater people. I don't know all the names of the groups, and we were all living different ways of life, with the theater in the background. And I don't know how I got there, but when we started, I was a faculty wife in Oberlin, studying theater, and Oberlin, Ohio. And my sister Muriel was interested in open theater, and my other sister was in a group called Masterworks. With we did a lot of, dealt with a lot of music and singing, and we had other women in the group, and one woman was Hopi Winnebago, that's her tribe, and she told stories. And as she told stories, she did finger weaving and weaving from the Hopi, and she used to tell stories of Spider Woman. And she passed away. And when she passed away, we took the name Spider Woman, which is Hopi.
Ah.
And
I was wondering where that came from.
Yeah. Well, it's not our nation, but we thought we had to honor her. And I'm making a very long story short. And I left Oberlin. I divorced my husband, and I landed in New York. And at that time, we started rehearsing at the American Indian Community House, and we had our first show at the American Indian Community House. And we had very little funds. All we had was our own ability to perform, and our background, our life, and what we were going through at the time. And we had our first performance at the American Indian Community, and then somebody from Maryland, I think, they were having a festival, and we were invited. So we went to the first theater festival in Maryland in about 1976. We started rehearsing in 75, and we went in 76. And by 1977, we were invited to the Maryland Festival, to the World Theater Conference in Nancy, France. And I think that's what really put us on the road. So we went to Nancy, France, and we had no idea what we were doing. Where we packed, we didn't. It was our first trip to Europe, and I guess we were out in the world after that, because in Europe, all kinds of groups from all over Europe wanted to see us, and that was in 1977.
Was it easier? Was it easier to find an audience in Europe at first than it was here?
Yes, in a way, because it was there. We were invited to this World Theater Festival in Nancy, France, and all the theaters of Europe were there, of the world. We would more or less in and didn't know it. And then all the entrepreneurs through Europe were interested in us. And so the first year of our experience in Europe, we were invited to Sweden, Finland, Italy, Berlin. It was amazing. It was amazing, and we learned a lot on our feet and our experiences in every way, shape, or form. It started really in Europe, and when we came back, we were asked by the chiefs of one of the reservations to go through our own country and reservations, which we did. And as we worked, we've had many different pieces, so we kept on working on changing and working and performing, and we're still working since 1976. Our first performance in New York to 2020 when the COVID came, and we're still working, but we're trying to get back on our feet again because of the pandemic. And it really is. It was wonderful and a wonderful experience, and I learned a lot in many ways. And the COVID set us back a little bit, but we're planning Spider-Man to start again at La Mama next year.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like you spent a lot of years going to different reservations.
Yes.
And what do you think they got out of it?
What?
Why do you think they wanted you to come?
Because
tell us about that.
The reservations never had a theater group that was world known at that time, as we had been invited to Australia and China as well as Europe. So they needed us to not only to help them heal. This was before the pandemic, but to be known and to see, although we were urban Indian natives, it's different than reservation natives. But so they invited us to have workshops and to perform and just be with them. Not all reservations, but many reservations in Canada as well as across the country. So right now, I guess I think we were known as the only all-women Native theater that was still active in the world. But now there are many theaters though.
So is one of the things you did was encourage people to tell their own stories with theater?
Yeah. Yes. They're Native stories, because it's like an iceberg, those stories, and every reservation is different. Canadian natives are different than the natives here. Our culture, our dance, our way of life, it gets similar but different, but indigenous, because there are a lot of countries we went to, Sweden and Finland, that had their own indigenous theater, but we worked with them, and it's so great. We didn't finish. There were a lot of more places to go, but we stopped and went across the country here in America and into Canada, and now we're trying to get back on our feet again because of the pandemic.
It's been a challenge for everybody. So when you visited different tribes and cultures, did you gather there? Did you learn a new dance or a new song from different people as you went?
We learned more about the culture and the people, like in Australia and New Zealand and places like that also, and shared our stories. It was the actual theater productions in theater, and yes, I learned a lot about the different nations, and I guess it was a start because a lot of theater groups started uh, on their own, start to tell their own stories, and the stories of young people who are in high school and say, "Hey, I'm going to do that too. Talk about myself and my people and tell stories because there's so many stories." And they're going for very strong now. Uh, making movies, like Reservation Dogs and stuff like that. A lot's going on, and
That's so inspiring.
yeah,
I
yeah,
Do
yeah.
you think that your performances up until 2020 um, still had pieces of your parents' stories embedded
Oh,
in them?
oh, yes, we never leave them out. It's a family. Like we told stories at home within the family. And then that was way back, well, like during the Depression, actually, because I'm pretty old. And we also, during the Depression, connected with Native people from across America who came to New York to perform at Madison Square Garden, the rodeos. And a lot of times we connected with them and they came to our home and spent weeks and days with us. So we met a lot of people that way, even from Central and South America. And I remember as a child listening to the voices of mainly men, not many women came, some women, the voices of people singing in our home uh, during the night. And it was so beautiful. A song from somebody from South Dakota, the Sioux, and songs from way upstate in the Seneca, and songs from Minnesota. And that was wonderful, as well as my father's and mother's songs and dances. And that was a lot of healing went on with how we felt about ourselves. And to this day, we have families that we used to sing with years ago. And it was interesting once a psychiatric organization in New York invited us to perform. And I forget what we performed. And then I asked one of the professors or the doctors why they chose us. I always ask that. And they said because identity. We kept our identity all the way through. So there have been many challenges, and but we kept our identity. And most indigenous people, whether they're urban or reservation, have their music, their songs, their dance, and most of all, stories. And that's why we survive. So that's
It's
how we
so
survive.
impressive.
Well, it's healing too. It saved my life during the pandemic to think of going back to that as well as being isolated and alone. Thinking of groups to join. Here where I live in New York, I live in Westbeth, an artist community. I don't know if you know about it.
Yes.
Yes, I live there, and they started a group called "You're Never Too Old to Play." And so I joined them. And during the pandemic, it was difficult. We Zoomed, and but it kept my juices going in my head, as well as being full of anxiety and fear and isolation. It kept me going. But I'm pretty old now, and I'm still have work to do. Not a lot, but work and just keeping me alive. Through my anxiety. It's and yeah, and
You
our fight. Whatever we did, wherever we went, we hit all kinds of issues. And that's how we got into the feminist world, because we're all women and fighting in theater and performing in theater took a lot of feminine wiles and strengths and experiences which you will never forget. You know, going through Europe in on a train or in a plane, being only women around was very difficult. But
That's. Do you have anything you would say to young people today who are following in your footsteps in one way or another, in the theater, in
well, I don't know.
native
I think
storytelling?
I don't know. They can pick anything out, but the thing is, nowadays, I think their story's a little different. They're added on to their background, and a lot of the work that the young people are doing are different. It's different. Like I haven't seen Reservation Dogs, which is very famous now. It's a movie, or I think it's a TV show. Their story is different, but it's still indigenous, you know, and their know-how and uh, uh, their, their fame, and let's put it that way, went faster. Like they got to the big world faster than we never did get to the big world. And you know what I mean? The stories are different, so I don't know what they would learn from us, but we were the beginning, and it's interesting. Uh, they might get something from us, but their whole idea of theater and work is different, and it's more out there. Like people are used to native stories now. Before it was like, oh, native stories are nice, you know. And I think that there's a difference. I don't know what they would get from us, just to see us and talk to us, but they're famous already, the young people, a lot of them. You know, I just picked Reservation Dogs because I listened to NPR and they were interviewed stuff was
right.
And they're there already, and you know they're receiving Emmys and probably Academy Awards already. You know, although we never aimed for that, but you know, what can they learn from us? I don't know.